Okay, welcome to episode 3 of The Religious Stripper. In the last 2 episodes, I've just been talking a lot about my childhood. Right now, I'm just storytelling to kind of set up the background so that you know where I've come from and what I've been through before I just start telling you all the stuff about my interpretation of how to be a badass babe. So continuing on, I've shared my story about how I come from a multiracial family. I grew up in a very international household. I grew up with a younger brother and I went through psychological abuse. My family was really into conspiracy theories, so it was like growing up in boot camp. I was also like very not used to like white American culture, even though I grew up in America. And I was also super religious. I was a teenage missionary traveling the world, just sharing about the Word of God and doing all these things. And then super academic with the Asian background, and then was kicked out the day after I graduated from college. So continuing on, I went through like 2 years-ish of homelessness or vagabond, couch surfing, whatever you want to call it. When I was 18 or 19, that was the first time I moved away from home. So what happened is, in a total of 2 years, I ended up moving 14 times. I did a lot of couch surfing. I had a lot of different situations. Some were good, some were by choice, some were like, all right, some weren't so much by choice. It varied a lot. So the first time I left was for college. I got an RA like scholarship. So I was asked to be a residence assistant in college. And so I got a free apartment, or like, I had 2 roommates, but I got a free apartment, which was pretty sweet. It was a good deal. So that was like my first time away from home, obviously willingly, obviously a good situation, and it was cool. After I finished, I realized I could not go back home. I remember, because I was an RA, I had to stay like an extra week after all the college students left. So everybody left, everybody moved out. There were like barely any people living at the college campus anymore. And I shared about how like I've had like these spiritual encounters that I don't really know what they mean or what they were. But I definitely remember waking up one morning or having a dream, and like in this dream, like this spiritual entity came into my room and was like, I'm Paul, the one who's been hunting you or torturing you or whatever and causing your sleep paralysis. And literally in this moment, I have sleep paralysis. I'm like awake and conscious, but I can't get my body up. It's like in my mind's eye, I see my room. It's like way messy than it actually is, way more messy than it actually is. And I can't like get my body up. And there's this like man standing in my doorway. And so like, I'm like trying to get myself up. I'm trying to wake myself up, like to get my body to move. And back then I would just like try to say the name Jesus over and over, because that's just like what I was taught was like the spiritual battle way to fight when you're fighting spiritual things. And so finally I like snap myself awake. My nose is bleeding. I'm alone in the apartment and I'm just like, what the fuck? Obviously I didn't say that though, because I was a super good girl Christian. But I like just cried and was like, oh man, like, I don't know what's about to happen, but like I'm kind of terrified because now I'm about to go back home and I just can't. So I went back home for a week, and then I left and stayed with my team leader for my service project. I stayed on her couch for a week, and I remember that first week just crying and being like so aware for the first time that all I had was my suitcase. I didn't have anything else other than that big suitcase and what was in there, and just feeling so like just stripped bare. Like I felt so disconnected from my family. I felt really alone, and I didn't like really feel like I had a home. So I stayed there for a few days, and then I went to Kazakhstan. I lived at Astana for a couple days, and then went to Atbasar. I think that's what it's called. It's been a while. So Astana is like a really rich, super like just stunning architecture, really rich city. And then Atbasar is like a really poor village. There's like no streets, there's like barely any street lights. It's very rural. So I stayed there for like two or 3 weeks, I think 2 weeks, and was just helping to teach English and build a park and just very wholesome service work. And I just remember like emailing back home and then just crying one day and being like, I can't go back home. I don't know where I'm gonna go, but I can't go back. Like, I cannot live being locked in my room anymore, no matter what. And I didn't know what was gonna happen. So then I went back to Astana, and we were in like this really beautiful big room. I was with a team, and I just remember being called out of the room and sitting down with my team leaders, and they were like, hey, so you're supposed to fly to China after this. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna go to China to visit my grandparents, and when I'm in China, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll figure out where I'm gonna go after that. They called me into this room and they're like, hey, we know you're supposed to go to China, but somehow everyone back at the university, the team members, my family, all of us somehow missed the fact that I needed to have a visa to get into China. So they were like, your ticket's already booked, but if you fly there, you can't get into the country. So you have 2 options. Either you fly back to America, or you stay here in Kazakhstan and just wait indefinitely until you maybe get a visa in who knows how long. And I just remember feeling like a train hit me and being like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't know where I'm gonna live in America. I can't go back home. I refuse to. I don't know where to go. I don't know where I'm gonna go. And I just remember crying. So I was like, I had to make the hard decision that I was gonna have to like go back to America. So then that evening, my whole team left. They all flew back to America. I went back home with the team lead who lived in Kazakhstan and stayed at her apartment. She left early in the morning, and I woke up the next morning in this apartment in Kazakhstan by myself, like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna go? And now I'm alone in Kazakhstan. So this random family picks me up. I spend the whole day with them. It's absolutely beautiful. At one point we're in the elevator, and the elevator door is shutting, and it shuts off. Like, luckily the door didn't shut, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so claustrophobic. And I was with a bunch of kids too, so. But I just remember like that evening telling these ladies my story, and one of the ladies was just crying. And, you know, at this time, like, all I knew is I just didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to get back into this mindset of I'm trapped and I'm stuck in this room where I just get screamed at, and my life is basically just getting screamed at and not being allowed to do or see or have anything I love. And I don't want that. I don't want to go back to that. So, yeah, then I get dropped back off at the airport. I fly to Abu Dhabi, which is a crazy airport, and I finally arrive back in America. And I just remember being at baggage claim, waiting to meet up with my family, looking for my bag. And I called my best friend at the time, and I was like, hey, I have a huge favor to ask. Can I stay with you and your family? Like, I can't go back home. Can I please stay with you? And so she said, I'll talk to my family and let you know. So I went back home. It was for about another week. And then after that, I went to my friend's house, and they were gracious enough to allow me to stay with them for 3 months. I think roughly 3 months for the summer. So I lived with my best friend. We shared a bed, and I lived with her family, and I was on a hip hop crew. So I was out like dancing hip hop at night. And it was a chill summer. Like, it was chill. I went through a breakup that really bummed me out. And after that breakup, I started wearing red lipstick and getting more into hip hop, and just kind of like starting to, that was actually kind of when I started drifting away from the church. I had been so close to this family, and when the breakup happened, it was just like, I just felt so disconnected from everything and everyone, and like I didn't have a home, I didn't have a family. I didn't know where I belonged. So I kind of started slipping a little bit away from the church and just being like, I don't really know right now. But it was still like my whole identity. So, and like kind of like the only like grounding thing within me to hang on to. So, after that, like, college started again, and I was like, I'm overstaying my visit if I stay longer than 3 months with this family. Like, I don't want them to start getting frustrated with me, and I have to figure out what to do. I'm about to do my last year of college. Mind you, I did college in 3 years instead of 4, so it was happening really fast, and I started school when I was young, so I'm only like 19 at this point. So I'm like, I need to finish my last year of college, so I'm just gonna go home and finish it. So I went back home, I lived at home, and then, you know, last day of college, I get kicked out. So during my time in college, I got this job with this family where I was like a personal assistant and like a part-time nanny. And when my boyfriend at the time dropped me off at this house, I lived in their bathroom, which they turned into this really cute little room for me, but it was still a bathroom. And I spent another 3 months living there, being like a basically full-time nanny. And I remember the family being gone at one point and just crying and being like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but something doesn't feel right. Like something is wrong. And I just remember starting to like hyperventilate and starting to panic and not knowing why. And it was the first time I was like, there's definitely something wrong with me. I don't know what it is. So while I was living with this family, like I had to like tell them when I would leave. And like I couldn't like just leave, like I had to like schedule my time like off, and I didn't like it. I was like, I just got away from like feeling like I'm trapped. Like I need freedom. I need to be able to come and go as I please and like not have to ask for permission to leave and just like be free. So I was like, this isn't gonna work. So I went on another trip. And I went to the Philippines. I lived in the Philippines for 2 weeks, and I lived in the Philippines for 2 weeks. I was living in a village by the ocean. So every morning I'd wake up at 5 a.m., go swim in the ocean. It was so warm and calm, and then go for a Bible study, and then go work with the kids and just like be a loving force there and like help register people for to get help with medical needs, because I was with a bunch of doctors and nurses. So I had like a little mattress on the floor. I slept on the floor in this village, and it was absolutely crazy. I got pink eye. The last couple days I got pink eye while I was there, because I was like playing with the kids and just hugging them and loving on them and letting them touch me and play with my hair, and totally caught pink eye from them. And so the very last night we were there, everyone was celebrating, and I was on the floor just like dying. Luckily I was with a bunch of like doctors and nurses, so like it was the best situation, but like I just like felt like I was gonna die, and I was like, this is it, like I'm gonna die on this floor here. Like I feel so terrible. I had a fever. I was just dying. But you know, I didn't. I was fine. I was just being dramatic. No, it just like was a really not fun sickness. So then like we flew to Manila after that, stayed there for a couple nights, and then I flew back to America to this family. And that week that I came back, I was like, I'm sorry guys, but like I have to quit. Like I'd love to keep working for you part-time, but I can't live, like if I can't do full-time anymore. Like I have to go. So packed up my suitcase again, and wow, where did I go after that? I went to live with a mom and her son. So my brother had a friend who had a single mom, and they had this big house. So I moved into one of their extra rooms, had another little mattress on the floor. One of my theater friends moved into another one of their rooms, and we all lived there for I lived there for a month. But now, you know, I've graduated, I'm only working part-time. I know I need to like get like a job, but I know like I want to be a dancer in Hollywood. I don't really know how to make these things happen. I just know I want to and I have to, and I can't get a full-time job because I need to be able to create, but I have to pay rent. So like after a month, I'm just like, okay, I can't do this. Like at this point, like looking back at it now, it's like, wow, how did I even get through that without like working like a full-time job? I was really lucky that I kept couch surfing, because I don't think many people would get that opportunity, to be honest. But yeah, then my brother's middle school choir teacher took me in. I had this really, really cute little room at this really beautiful like house in the hills. It was really quiet though. Like the wife was always teaching, the husband was like barely there. They were retired. He was retired, so it was just like really quiet and kind of lonely. So I like lived there for a month, and it was nice but lonely. And then the month was over and I had to move again. So then I moved in with one of my best friends and her dad. The mom had just passed away, so they were really open to having me come, and I had another cute little room. I ended up staying there for 6 months. And then I got married. So yeah, that was like the bout of my homelessness. I was just the vagabond trying to figure out, like, I know I have this dream. I don't fully know how to make it happen. I don't have my family support. I don't really have anything. You know, I went from having a suitcase. Eventually I was able to buy a car off somebody, and I remember packing up the car and being like, my whole life fits in this car. But looking back at it now, at least my whole life could fit in a car, whereas before my whole life could fit in like a suitcase. So it was, you know, slowly like making progress of like building a life for myself, but struggling. So yeah, like, yeah, I understand now looking back at it why my dad just wanted me to get a job, but I just saw things different, and I just had so much hope for like a different kind of future and a different kind of way of living that nobody could understand, because nobody else had ever seen anything like that in my hometown. But there's just something in my gut that was like, I know there's more to it than this. I'm not just gonna waste 40 hours a week spending more than half my life doing things I hate at a place I hate. Like, I know there's more to it than this. Spoiler alert, I did end up getting a full-time job for a year and a half, but at first I kind of had to like figure it out. So I was vagabonding for those 2 years, and it was just a really like humbling process of like, you are you, and that's it. That is it. You got nothing else other than yourself and a couple belongings. So yeah, that was what happened. When I was in the Philippines, I started working on my first book, A Step Outside, which was about the human trafficking system and the orphan system. And I was able to publish my first book. I got a contract. They went bankrupt 3 weeks before my book released, so I had to self-publish, which was a huge bummer. But I guess it worked out, because then I had to stop selling it because I became very not religious and was like, I can't like sell a religious book right now. So yeah, that happened. And then after that, I got married. So I guess I should touch on that a bit. Do I want to touch on that in this episode? Yeah, we'll touch on it a little in this episode. We won't go into the marriage though. So when I was in high school, I went to this middle college. That's how I got a year of college done early. And I had a boyfriend at the time. I had 3 back-to-back relationships. All of them were 3 years long. So for 9 years, I was just like jumping into relationships. All my boyfriends wanted to marry me. Eventually, I married the last one. So junior year of high school, I was dating this guy. He had been my first boyfriend. We were probably 2 years in. And I remember sitting on the floor in the hallway of my high school wearing this giant jacket from my boyfriend who went to a different high school. I had moved high schools my sophomore year. And I saw this kid walking through with a fedora and a guitar, and he had some girl on his arm that was his girlfriend. And I just remember the second I saw him just getting hot all over and being like, he's supposed to be with me. And as soon as I thought that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, 1, you have a boyfriend. 2, he has a girlfriend. 3, you don't even know who he is. Why would you think that? But it was just like something in me just knew that this was the man I was gonna marry. So yeah, it wasn't until like maybe a week or 2 later, I guess he had broken up with his girlfriend, and I was sitting in my history class, and this kid comes walking through the door. My seat faced the doorway, and he just comes walking through the door with his fedora and guitar, and there's only one seat available, and it's right across from me, so he just beelines straight to the seat across from me. He says hello to the guy next to me, who was a good friend of mine at the time, and then he looks at me and says hello, and I'm just like, who is this guy, and why is he about to enter my life? I still have a boyfriend at this time, so we meet, and he sees I have a book. We start talking about how I like to read. I ask him what he likes to do. I think he said something along the lines of drugs, and I was like, wow, this will never work, never mind. And it's just established from the get-go, I'm this really good religious Christian girl, you're this troublemaker party boy. So for the next year, we end up sitting next to each other in this history class, flirting and spending time together. Our two best friends end up dating. So after school, me and my best friend had a Spanish class at the college to go to. So all four of us would hang out. So no one in the school knew we were hanging out, but we were like becoming like best friends and hanging out all the time and flirting and doing all of that. And yeah, then the school year ended. And so we kept in touch on Facebook, and we went to a baseball game for his birthday, and we left the baseball game and got locked out of the stadium. So we walked down the street and found this little corner and sat down, and I don't totally remember what he said, but he told me about some fling he had with a girl and how it didn't work out. And then he tells me how he likes me and how he doesn't want to date me, but how we can like learn a lot from each other. And I'm instantly like, okay. So I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me you like me. And that was it. And I never said anything else past that. So we went back home. I don't remember if I saw him again after that. But then all of a sudden, I just didn't hear from him. For 2 months, I didn't hear from him. I had talked to him after that, I know that much. But then he just disappears. And then, like, at first I'm like, okay, that's a little odd. But more time goes on and I'm like, okay, this is really odd. And then I start asking around, like, wait, has anybody heard from him? Ghosting, like, was not a thing in high school at this point. It's not till later I discovered ghosting. So I was like, okay, this is getting weird. And nobody's heard from him. So now I'm like, okay, what the fuck? So I start hearing rumors, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm not sure what's happening. And then I finally get a letter in the mail. I open up the letter, and this boy has handwritten me and tells me I really fucked up. Turns out he is in juvie on his way to San Quentin. So for the next 2 years, he's in prison. I know right now I'm not going to share what he did. There's no reason to share. But yeah, he was in prison. So for the next 2 years, we write each other back and forth. And I'm, every 2 weeks I get a letter from him. I write him back. Every 2 weeks, get another letter. We just go back and forth. At one point, he tries to call me. I missed the call. I didn't even realize it was from him. Because, the prison had to call. He had to call from the prison, so it's like you have to accept the call. I think I hung up because I didn't recognize the number and was like, this is weird. Anyways, 2 years goes by. He finally gets out of prison. He forgets to contact me until his mom reminds me. We hang out, and there's just nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. And then I don't see him for a year. After a year, I finally see him again. And he's trying to get back on the straight and narrow path. He's like on his way back to prison, but he's trying to like straighten himself up again. And I'm homeless. At this point, I'm living with my best friend after I'd come back from Kazakhstan before my last year of college. And so right as I start my last year of college, I'm like, what's going on here? Make your move or don't. So he asked me to be his girlfriend right before I go to hip hop. I think I asked him something like, so like, what are we doing? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend or not? And he was like, yeah, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm like, are you gonna ask me? And he was like, will you be my girlfriend? And I was like, yeah. Oh my God, it was something along those lines. And then I went to hip hop practice. So yeah, we started dating, and when we were dating, I just remember thinking like, all right, Alyssa, like, you know this boy's kind of trouble. You're not trying to get into any trouble, so just like keep it casual. You know, he still is like talking, like not talking to other girls, but you know, he's not like in a super duper committed mindset. Like he still is like questioning about his ex and all this other stuff. So don't like get too, you know, keep your distance, but like, you know, hang out, be boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And so that's what we did for the rest of my college career. We were boyfriend, girlfriend, and hanging out and doing the thing, not doing the thing. At this point, I'm still a virgin. Like, people haven't put their hands in my pants at all. And I was like, either you marry me or you don't touch me. And so with this boy, who I knew was no longer a virgin, I told him, you are not allowed to kiss me on the lips until or unless you think you are going to propose to me. I had researched how to be a wife. I'm not even joking. That was like the thing to do when you were a Christian girl in this town. Like, you research how to be a wife. And that was what you do when you go to California Baptist University. You figure out how to get the ring. That's how the game works. So yeah, I told him, you're not allowed to kiss me until you decide you want to propose to me. Until then, don't kiss me. So for 8 months, he didn't kiss me. Like, no sex, nothing. That was the name of the game. And yeah. And then, you know, I got kicked out. So that was the boyfriend who brought me to my boss's house that night that I got kicked out. And then everything changed. Everything changed. So I'm gonna end this episode here with that, with me and my silly troublemaker boyfriend, and I'll get into how we ended up tying the knot and the mess that became, and just the wildness of my marriage and who we were when we were young. So it's all slowly coming together. I just want to make sure I share this full story, because then when I share how I've gotten to here at this point in my life and what I've built and how I've overcome everything, it'll all make more sense. So, and I want to get more into the next episode, not only like, you know, what happened, but also I want to get into what was wrong with me, because there was something very seriously wrong with me. So I'll talk about that in the next episode. So be good to yourself, be the best badass babe you can be, and I will catch you for the next episode of The Religious Stripper. Goodbye.